Ladies and gentlemen, very, very welcome to the Austrian National Library, and I say just in short, welcome, Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Good evening. Great to have you here tonight with the Austrian students. This evening is proudly presented by the Austrian National Library, by the University of Southern California. Good evening, hello. By the Austrian Ministry of Science and Research. Guten Abend, Minister Töchterle. And here is Candy Keller, Director of the UNIDO, designated special representative of sustainable energy to the United Nations. Welcome, gentlemen. Wonderful to have you here. We have 1,000 students here. 1,000 students want to discuss with you tonight, Governor, and with you, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, thank you very much. This is a students' event, and we want to give the students as much time as possible to discuss with the Governor. So when you have all your pictures, it would be great to evacuate and let us have the sight on the students. And at this moment, maybe a good morning to California. At the USC, this event is being live broadcasted online, and I'm sure a lot of students watching there. So good morning to California from Vienna, Austria. Before we start into this discussion, I would like to present tonight's sponsor. Let me introduce CEO Dr. Christoph Scharf from Altstoff Recycling Austria. Good evening, Mr. Scharf.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Minister Töchterle, Minister Berlakovic, General Secretary Junckela, former Governor Schwarzenegger, first of all, delegates, on behalf of ARA as the sponsor of this event, welcome to the National Library here in Vienna. We at ARA, we provide recycling solutions for packagings, so that all households and businesses in Austria can make a difference and can contribute to the environment by recycling packagings. And let me tell you, they love it. Austria is among the top-ranking member states in the European Union in packaging recycling. So all credits to our Ministry of the Environment, Niki Perlakovic. But we have to think beyond that. Recycling is more than just raw materials and resources. We at ARA and the R20 initiative of former Governor Schwarzenegger, we share a common goal, and this is climate protection. Packaging recycling in Austria saves more than 600,000 tons of CO2 equivalents annually. So this is a significant contribution to climate protection. I would like to thank you, Governor Schwarzenegger, for the opportunity to support this event, for your initiative, and above all, for your truly inspiring speech this morning at the conference. It was really amazing. But back to you, delegates. Let me tell you, it's amazing to be with you here tonight in this hall. Almost 1,000 young men and women. You're students now, but you will be decision makers and leaders in the future. And it's fantastic to see you interested, motivated, and enthusiastic to contribute to climate protection and the responsible use of resources. So on behalf of ARA, let me welcome you again. Thank you for your interest. Enjoy the evening with this eminent panel And don't forget to recycling your packagings thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christoph Sharp. We're also very happy to have tonight Bonnie Rees with us. She's the Global Director of the University of Southern California and of the Schwarzenegger Institute and former member of the cabinet of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, Bonnie Rees.
Thank you. I don't want to stand with my back to these distinguished leaders. Thank you, Ingrid. And let me start by saying what a great honor it is for me to have the opportunity to speak here tonight. And it's also a great honor for me to be able to serve as the director of the University of Southern California Schwarzenegger Institute on State and Global Policy. It has been a privilege and an honor to serve in that capacity, and I've known Arnold for more years than most of you have been alive, and I've served as Arnold's senior advisor when he was governor and his Secretary of Education. So on behalf of the USC Schwarzenegger Institute, I want to welcome here today over 1,000 university students representing Austria's most prestigious universities. Give yourself a hand. And I also want to say that we're very excited that joining us right now live are USC students who are watching this via our live webcast, and welcome all the people as well throughout the globe that are tuning into this through our live webcast. You heard mentioned the important R20 conference that was going on renewable energy this morning. And when Arnold addressed the 1,000 political leaders and business leaders and that were gathered from the region and around the world, from the United Nations, the Chancellor of Austria, the President of the European Union, he said that we won't be successful in addressing our climate issues that face the planet unless we face it with positivity and make people feel inspired to be part of the movement. And I know that that reminded me of my favorite author and quote, and that was from George Bernard Shaw, who said how some people look at the world and they see things as they are and they ask why. And others look at the world and they dream things that never were and they asked why not. So I could tell you firsthand, knowing Arnold for over 30 years and having been his Secretary of Education, that of all the issues this man is passionate about, education is the most important issue, tied maybe only by physical fitness and public service. And that is because of you students. And the reason why Arnold, when he wanted to continue his public service career and help continue to fight to find the answers and solutions to the great challenges our world faces in environment, in education, in health and wellness, in economy, and in political reform, he chose to do it by partnering with a prestigious university in California. And the number one reason he did that is because of the students. Because he knows that you are the dreamers, that we here tonight cannot even imagine how you will dream new inventions, new innovations, and new ways to make the world a better place. And for that, we are most grateful to be here with you, and we are looking forward at the Schwarzenegger Institute to continue our collaboration, not just with the students of USC, but with the students throughout the globe. And we thank you, and we hope you enjoy tonight's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Governor Schwarzenegger, now look at this 1,000 students in here and a lot more who want to come in, all enthusiastic and interested in the issue of climate change, an issue of new energy mix, and of course in you personally. So I would like to start with a personal question. Why? What is your personal motivation to engage in this topic of a sustainable energy supply?
Zuerst möchte ich nur ein paar Wörter in Deutsch sagen.
Da freuen wir uns sehr.
Ich möchte mich erstens bei den Universitätsstudenten für ihre Einladung bedanken. Und ich möchte mich auch recht herzlich bei der Österreichischen Nationalbibliothek für die Gastfreundschaft bedanken. Es ist wunderschön, wieder in Österreich zu sein. Und ich möchte mich auch recht herzlich bei Bundeskanzler Faymann bedanken für die herrliche Freundschaft und dass er der Co-Host von unserer internationalen Energiekonferenz ist. Ich möchte mich auch recht herzlich bei Minister Balakovic bedanken für seine Freundschaft und für seine Unterstützung in den letzten Jahren. Er ist öfters zu unseren Energiekonferenzen in Kalifornien gekommen. So recht herzlichen Dank für deine Unterstützung. Die meisten berichten hier in Österreich, ich bin nur hier für die Energie und für die Environmental-Konferenz. Aber das stimmt nicht. Ich bin hier auch, weil man in Amerika nicht die guten Wiener Schnitzel kriegt und den guten Kaiserschmarrn und den guten Schnaps. So, das schmeckt sehr gut, ich bin auch deswegen hier. Aber wie gesagt, es ist sehr viel Spaß für mich, wieder in Österreich zu sein. Und now we can continue on in English. So let me just say that it is when I became governor of the great state of California, I saw the opportunity to move forward with environmental issues in a very aggressive way. California people were ready. California always was going in the direction of being environmentally friendly. But I was very fortunate that I was introduced by Bobby Kennedy, one of my relatives, to a man that was really an extraordinary leader in environmental issues. And his name is Terry Tamminen. Terry, if you would please get up. And just so everyone sees you. And Terry Tamminen, let me tell you, is without any doubt one of the smartest people when it comes to environmental issues. I mean, he's one of the smartest people, period, but especially when it comes to environmental issues. The kind of information that this guy has stored away is absolutely extraordinary, and he mapped out a road to success for me when I became governor. So I want to say thank you to him because I was not that much into environmental issues. I was environmentally friendly, but I was not fanatic about it. I did not really push it that hard. But when I became governor, it became one of the most important things to me because I saw the opportunity, and I saw also that when you sit there in the governor's chair, the danger that we are in if we don't do anything about it right away. And the danger that we're in, that if we wait for the national governments to come up with agreements or with laws that protect us, or with the international community, with the UN to come up with a way of a Kyoto II treaty or something like that, where all the nations come together and march in the same direction. We hope that this happens, and I always hoped that this happens, and I told this to the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, that we are there 100% and help in any way we can. But in the meantime, we must be aggressive on our own and move forward in a very aggressive way, because it is saddening when you see the amount of people that die every year because of pollution-related illnesses. And so we can do better as human beings. When you're in government, your number one priority is to protect people, to create safety and protection for the people. So you can't let that happen. So this is why I got interested in that, and my interest got deeper and deeper. And just like with fitness, when I left bodybuilding competition, that did not mean that I turned my back on promoting health and fitness to our youngsters around the world. And the same I did here. I said, when I'm finished with the governorship, I will continue my crusade. This is my new crusade, to continue on and to bring everyone together, Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives, private industry, the academic world. Bring everyone together, because we only can really win this battle if we fight together. So this is why I became kind of very passionate about this subject.
And we hear this, we feel it, your passion. And I would like to ask Minister Töchterle, and we switched into German in the meantime a little bit. Herr Minister, welchen Beitrag kann eigentlich Wissenschaft und Forschung zu dem leisten, was Gouverneur Schwarzenegger vorhat mit seinem leidenschaftlichen Kampf für dieses Thema neuer Energiemix?
Schönen Abend auch meinerseits, vor allem an die Studierenden. Herr Schwarzenegger, vielen Dank, dass Sie zu uns kommen und uns diese Leidenschaft mitteilen, die Sie hier im Einsatz für eine bessere Zukunft leisten und einbringen. Ich glaube, Wissenschaft und Forschung ist die Basis für das alles. Wissenschaft und Forschung erkennt erstens einmal das Faktum des Klimawandels. Wissenschaft und Forschung und nur sie kann eruieren, was sind die Ursachen dafür und damit auch die Mittel finden, die zur Behebung dienen und damit auch die Wirkungen bekämpfen und vorsorgen, dass wir mit den Folgen dieses Klimawandels, die jetzt leider schon unausweichlich sind, bestmöglich umgehen. Und da ist Österreich sehr, sehr gut gerüstet, das weiß ich, durch viele Besuche in den Universitäten aller Welt. Überall wird die österreichische Forschung hier sehr, sehr geschätzt. Und wie gesagt, sie beginnt beim Erkenntnis der Ursachen, die man natürlich vor allem im alpinen Raum besonders schnell, besonders gut erforschen kann, wo auch die Wirkung viel schneller und deutlicher sichtbar ist. Und es endet dabei, eben Alternativen zu finden gegen diese Ursachen. Wir wissen, dass zum Beispiel das Verbrennen fossiler Brennstoffe eine der Hauptursachen ist. Und wenn wir entsprechende alternative Energiequellen finden, dann ist das eine ganz einfache und wichtige Gegenmaßnahme. Und ich darf vielleicht bei der Gelegenheit nur ein Ergebnis dieser österreichischen Forschung einfach hier zeigen und es Ihnen, Herr Schwarzenegger, dann auch überreichen. Das ist eine Tasche mit einem Solarpanel. Das ist an und für sich nichts Neues. Das Neue ist, dass dieses Solarpanel biegsam ist und dass es nicht aus Siliziumzellen gebaut ist, sondern aus organischem Material, erfunden und entwickelt von einem Wissenschaftler der Universität Linz, der voriges Jahr den Wittgenstein-Preis bekommen hat, Professor Salicivci. Und Herr Schwarzenegger, ich darf Ihnen diese Tasche überreichen als ein Symbol sozusagen für österreichische wissenschaftliche Leistung.
Thank you. That looks like an interesting thing to have, Mr. Junkeller. As we know, also from your speeches this morning, up to 1.5 billion people worldwide do not have access to any kind of electricity or energy. I mean, look at this bag. Would this be a step into a solution for this problem? Maybe?
For sure, it will be a step into the solution, and there are many simple solutions like that, but they're not reaching the poor. We need to accelerate more R&D to make those kinds of solutions cheaper so that they can move fast. For those that exist today, we need to collaborate more with civil society and get financing to be able to bring it down. But there's a bigger number. I think it is unacceptable, and it should be unacceptable to the next generation, that you have 3 billion people who rely on charcoal and firewood for their primary energy use in the 21st century. And all the projections we're doing, that number may not change in the next 20, 30 years. These are people locked out of economic opportunity. If they don't have hope, think about yourselves. If you don't have hope and aspiration of a good life, welfare, it creates insecurity around the world. So for this generation, I think the challenge for you is looking ahead. Don't do what our generation have done. We don't have enough equity. We have not lifted that many people out of poverty. But at the same time, we are comfortable, but we pollute the rest of the world. Carbon dioxide has no passport. You release it, it affects other people. And the injustice, it is that the poor pay the biggest price. Give you an example. Africa accounts for less than 2% of global greenhouse gas emissions. But you look at all the scenarios for business as usual. the Africans might pay the highest price when we have the worst impacts of climate change. 50% reduction in food crop yields, a lot of diseases, droughts. Why should other children, my 2 kids are here, why should they pay the price? Because I have an air conditioner here. Because I am releasing more carbon. In an equitable world for security and peace, these simple solutions should go down. But more importantly, give them access to energy so they achieve the Millennium Development Goals. Access to food, water, and healthcare. Last number I give you, 4 million people die every year because of indoor air pollution. 85% of them, women and children. Because of pulmonary diseases, because they use charcoal and firewood. You guys should be part of that solution in the future for the sake of prosperity for your generation, because we live in the same one world. We don't have a second planet. And these solutions are there.
As mentioned before, we gathered a lot of questions from you, ladies and gentlemen, and some of them we want to discuss, of course, tonight. And the first one I have here on my list is Shruti Atavale, and she has a question for Governor Schwarzenegger, and I hope the microphone will reach her quickly so we can discuss her issue with the governor. Please.
Thank you for being here, Herr Schwarzenegger. My question is very general. After years of politics, acting, and sports, do you believe it will be possible for everybody to come together and take care of the solutions of climate change and global warming, for example? Thank you.
Yes, I think that I'm a very optimistic person. I think the most important thing is that, first of all, we don't see this as a political issue. Because I remember that when I started working on environmental issues in California, all of a sudden I saw Democrats and Republicans fighting over that issue. Republicans were against it, Democrats were for it, and I said to myself, well, wait a minute, aren't we all breathing the same air? I mean, there is no Democratic air or Republican air. We all breathe the same air. The same is with water. We all drink the same water. We all use the same roads. We all use the same schools. I mean, let's all come together on some of those issues. There's some issues we should not get politics involved in this. And so this is why it is important when I said that we got to take politics out of it and make it post-partisan. It's one of the most important things, and I think this is the only way that the United States ever will come up with a great energy policy and with a great environmental policy. When Democrats and Republicans work together and not think about ideology and not put people into ideological corners, but to think about what is best for the people and what is best for the country and what is best for the world. So yes, I have hope that we can bring the parties together. Yes, I have hope that we can bring the public and the private sector together. Yes, I have hope that we also can bring the ordinary folks and students like you to bring them into the movement and not make everyone feel guilty about what they can't do and tell them what they can't do, but make them feel like they should be part of the movement and tell them what they can do and how they can participate. So I have great hope for that, and this is why I'm so interested in having created the Schwarzenegger Institute at the University of Southern California, because I think it is so important for me to reach out to the students. The students are the leaders of the future. You are the most important thing for us. You're going to lead this world, and so this is why it's so important for me to reach out to the students worldwide. If it's in Austria, if it's in Africa, if it's in the Middle East, or if it is in Asia, or wherever, I will be traveling around the world. And now, since I'm a professor, I might as well go to the universities and talk about this issue. So yes, I'm very optimistic.
How did you actually bring this topic into your own family? How did you teach your kids to grow awareness for this whole thing?
Well, I think that with kids, you can talk about it and you can educate them, but then at one point or the other, you got to show them consequences if they don't go in that direction. Like, for instance, my kids, I said to them, they should turn off the lights when they leave the room. And, sometimes they did it, sometimes they didn't. So I just told them, I said, hey, let's make it simple. Every time you don't turn off the lights, I'm going to take one of the light bulbs away in the room. And so they didn't pay much attention to that, but after a week, all the light bulbs were gone in the room. And so then it was dark, and then, when they were little, they were scared to go into the dark room. So then they came crying to me. So then I made it clear. I said, well, we can change that. I say, if you turn off the lights every time that you leave the room. And so I put the light bulbs back, and then the following week, they turned off the lights every time they left the room. The same was when they take showers. My kids had this habit of sitting in the showers for 20 minutes on a stool and to just let the water come down and to just, enjoy this great pleasure of the warm water. So I said, look, after 5 minutes, the shower is over. And after that, you have to take a cold shower. So, of course, that didn't go over very well, and they kept sitting in the shower. Then I found a device that after 5 minutes automatically, when we build it into the shower, after 5 minutes automatically, the hot water turned off and it turned ice cold. So then you could see them jumping out of the shower very quickly. So that stopped the long showers. So those are the kind of things that we did at home, and I made it clear also when they drive cars, what kind of cars they should drive, how to be more environmentally friendly with shopping bags and with grocery bags and all of those things. So my kids have really learned a lot, and they're really helping. Also, they have seen firsthand, that I, for instance, have installed, thousands and thousands of solar panels on our hill to show to them that when you have solar, that will take care of the heating of the swimming pool and of the jacuzzi and part of the house, that is abundant amount of energy you have from the sun, and you don't burn oil or coal or anything else. So I think they've learned a lot of that. And they're also in schools in America, kids learn a lot about environmental issues, so they're very much aware of all those things, including other things. I mean, like they will come home and they say, why do you have a cigar in your mouth? That will kill you. So they bust on those kind of things too, So I have to go outside the house now to light up my cigar so I don't get complaints from my kids.
I found it also very impressive when you talked this morning about the whole strategy, everything, every measure we take, it should seem cool, trendy, modern, really a thing for the next generation. And I would like to ask Minister Töchterle, wie kann man so ein Bewusstsein schaffen, dass das nicht etwas ist, wo man ständig über Verzicht nachdenken muss, sondern etwas, was cool ist, was der Trend der Zeit ist, was einfach dazugehört, um ein toller Hecht zu sein, wenn man es mal so betiteln möchte.
Ja, ein wenig geheiztes Haus ist auf jeden Fall cool, aber das ist vielleicht nicht das, was man will. Nein, es ist sicher ein Problem, dass Wissenschaft und Forschung, die ich hier vertrete, nicht reicht. Das ist schon klar. Es muss das Gefühl angesprochen werden. Und dafür sind natürlich Persönlichkeiten wie Herr Schwarzenegger ideale Botschafter. Es muss sehr bewusst gemacht werden, dass wir uns hier alle etwas Gutes tun. Es reicht das kühle, sachliche Argument nicht. Wo man ansetzen muss natürlich, und auch das ist schon gesagt worden, man muss vor allem in der Bildung ansetzen. Und wir wissen ja zum Beispiel in Österreich, und ich hoffe, das ist in anderen Ländern ähnlich, dass bei uns auf die Kinder, die Eltern zu ökologischem Bewusstsein erziehen, weil die Kinder hier sehr schnell sensibilisiert werden können. Und natürlich ist die gesamte Bildungslandschaft bis hin zum tertiären Sektor hier gefordert. Und wir tun hier vieles in Österreich, um Awareness zu schaffen, also um Bewusstsein zu schaffen, wie man sich ökologisch verhält. Also es ist eine Schlüsselaufgabe, glaube ich, jeglicher Bildung, das zu tun. Und es ist eine verantwortungsvolle Aufgabe, an der alle mitarbeiten müssen. Aber es ist richtig, es muss positiv konnotiert werden und es darf nicht mit Verzicht konnotiert sein. Es muss etwas Gutes sein, was wir dort tun, und wir müssen ständig das Gefühl haben, dass wir etwas Gutes tun, wenn wir uns ökologisch verhalten.
The most important thing is communication. The way you communicate to the people. As I said earlier, if you keep beating up on people and make them feel guilty, I don't think they want to join. I remember that when we promoted health and fitness, in the early days before me, they always showed the most muscular man with their veins popping out and lifting thousands of pounds and their neck being like 80 centimeters around, and the weird-looking characters people said, I don't want to look like that. I don't want to do that. You know, I think this is a sport where you get to be, you know, become dumb and you get muscle bound and you become gay and all of those kind of things. Oh, this is terrible. And then, you know, I started thinking about it. There must be a different way of promoting that. And we did. We changed it and used ordinary folks to lift weights, and we brought women in to lift weights and to have a good time with weight training. And the whole crusade changed. The communication changed. The message changed. And all of a sudden it turned around, and in the 70s, bodybuilding started becoming hip. And everyone started, you know, writing about it. Sports Illustrated did cover stories on it in America. And then the New York Times, the LA Times, everyone started writing about it, including European magazines, and it started spreading. And today, because of that, there's a gymnasium literally everywhere. In every hotel in the world, wherever you go, it doesn't matter where you go, there's a gymnasium. In every military base, every fire station, every police station, every university, every high school, every sports team, everyone has a weight room. Even in hospitals, they have rehab rooms where there's weight resistance training. So now everyone has discovered that actually weight resistance training and sports and fitness are very healthy and very important for longevity and all this. So our crusade was successful because we took a different approach rather than showing always these muscle guys that win the world championships in bodybuilding. And the same we have to do also with environmental issues. We can't, you know, always kind of approach it like, you know, to make people like scientists or something like this. But let them, you know, let's be sexy and let's be cool about it, and let's, you know, be inclusive about it rather than, you know, kind of pushing them away.
We do have a big number of people who can't even think about, as mentioned, to be inclusive part of this issue because they don't have access to energy at all. And we have one question, including that issue from Paul Leitner. I would like to ask the question to all of us so we can get the answer.
Hello, thank you very much. I want to know how we can convince the emerging markets to invest directly in renewable energy instead of fossil energy. Thank you very much.
Good question.
What was the question again?
The question was how can the fast-growing emerging and developing countries be convinced to invest in renewables from the start instead of conventional forms of energy?
Well, I think that when you show that it's profitable, then everyone wants to invest in it. I mean, in California, for instance, I remember in the beginning there was a certain hesitation to invest in solar because people said, well, how do we make sure that we get the power that we get from solar from the desert into the city? Because we didn't have really any delivery lines, any power lines. And so then we started really looking into that and started building the power lines. As a matter of fact, the first ones just came online that only deliver green energy from wind and from solar. So it's like a film or anything else. You can have the best film in the world, but if you don't have the distribution, you have nothing. The same is also with solar. You can have the biggest solar plants in the world, but if you don't have the delivery to the main line, you know, to the grid, you have nothing. So I think what you have to show is that it is a profitable business. In California, we have shown that it is a profitable business, and the solar business is booming. The same is like, for instance, with companies like SolarCyme, that produce biofuel from algae. It's a whole new concept, and then now other companies are doing it, and they're selling so much. They're so profitable, and they are so successful because they came up with a great idea. And so I think what it takes is just really, you know, always promote the idea and give the same subsidies. Like in the United States gives $75 billion in subsidies for a year for oil companies and fossil fuels, but only $12 billion for renewable energy. So that's not fair, and therefore, you know, it always will be held back. What we have to do is give the same subsidies for green energy, for renewable energy, and I think then the companies can benefit from that.
There is also one interesting issue Mr. Candela mentioned earlier, which was another number. You told us about how much time women use for gathering, for example, wood to light a fire, to cook the food and stuff like that.
Yeah, we estimate, the World Bank and others estimate, that women and girls spend about 20 hours a week collecting firewood and also water for cooking. This is time that could have been used in school by young girls. This is time that could have been used for something else by women. So you look at access to energy, again, it's about women's economic empowerment. But what is worse is when you go to developing countries, you see a woman carrying firewood on her head, maybe 5 kg, and carrying a baby on her back. As I saw this Christmas in my village, a pregnant woman carrying firewood at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Why? Because she knew she has to go and cook. But if she had not fetched water in the morning, she may have to go and fetch water back. With renewables, you can pump that water, as they do in Kenya, and pay by mobile phone. With other cooking solutions, they may not need to use firewood or as much firewood. The worst part is they cook with it and they poison themselves and the kids. And you might ask, why is the mortality rate so high amongst children? When I was growing up, when your mother is cooking in the kitchen, you play around the kitchen. So you're inhaling the smoke. And the new figures we just heard from Professor Kirk Smith at Berkeley University, 4 million deaths a year. That's worse, 4 times worse than malaria. We project it will be worse than malaria and HIV/AIDS combined. So for those of you students who are looking at women's health, the Millennium Development Goals looking at the health component, we say that energy is the ultimate enabler. Energy linked to food security, energy linked to water security. And one of the new research programs we've just started with YASA, for example, with Professor Pavel, is to look at that nexus between energy access and water security, but also sanitation. If you can pump the water, you can filter it. And most diseases in developing countries come from contaminated water. So you begin to see these linkages, and I think for students, that's what they should be looking at. It's not individual policies. It's combination of policies. Energy, water, energy, food. The nexus, the Germans call it. But also the whole issue of urban planning. How can we do new urban design to reduce our use of energy in urban municipalities? Again, why R20? The mayors know that one of their biggest costs and their bill is how they provide that energy to heat buildings, the transport systems. So mayors, in fact, and governors are more active than federal governments. But Arnold is trying to activate that now, that they can even do more.
Yes, there is one question that came in from the University of Southern California, and I would like to bring it to you. It's posed by the president of the Graduate Policy Administration Community, Joseph Edwards. He wants to know the following from you. Obviously, one way to encourage companies to reduce emissions is by giving them tax incentives or by scaring them with increased taxes and penalties. While those are great short-term solutions, don't you think that long-lasting environmental policy won't take shape until companies align with the morals of the cause? And how are we going to convince them?
Well, it takes time, but I think that's what I said earlier, the way we communicate and with the combination of that and passing sound laws. We in California have those laws in place. And because we have those laws in place, we have made our people and our companies partners with our goal and with government, so that we are now 40% more energy efficient in California than the rest of the nation. This is because we've brought the people in and we've made the people partners and made them understand that conservation is the most important thing. And when you conserve, when you use 40% less energy, then you're also putting out 40% less on greenhouse gases. So this is where the trick is conservation, and this is why technology is so important. This is why we always continue pushing technology, the latest technology, because we can have the same lifestyle. As I've said today in my speech, you can continue the same lifestyle, but we now have technology available where we can reduce the output of power. Like, for instance, with the flat screen TVs. We are selling flat screen TVs all over the world. In California, we passed a law that the flat screen TVs have to be only use 20% of the energy. So if you only use 20% of the energy, you can continue using your flat screen TV and watch the flat screen TV, and you don't have to worry about using so much energy. So those are the kind of things that we do, and people become then partners, people buy in on those things, but it's the combination of passing the right laws and also explaining it to people and communicating to people why this is important. I mean, when you really tell people that the amount of people that die from pollution-related illnesses, the amount of people that die just because of the groundwater being polluted because of fossil fuels, the amount of people that die because of smog-related things, or the soot that is in the air. I mean, you just look at Los Angeles. I mean, we for years and years and years, the percentage of people that got cancer around the ports of Los Angeles, it was so much higher than anywhere else. So as soon as we passed laws and said that we have to change the engines of the trucks from diesel to electric or to hydrogen and to other forms, immediately the death rate went down, the cancer rate went down, and we have reduced the pollution in those areas now by 70% within the last 5 years. So you can do it. It's again, the public sector and the private sector has to work together, and you have to communicate and bring the people into the movement rather than always just, teaching, threatening them with things and how bad it is. And always, people have to buy in, then they go out and they participate in this.
Do you actually still drive your Hummer car?
Pardon me?
Do you still drive your Hummer car?
Oh yes, but my Hummer has now a hydrogen engine, one of them which is zero emissions, so it's the same size car.
Wonderful.
I still drive this monster car, but it has a hydrogen engine, zero emissions, and the rest of them have biofuel. So it's as a matter of fact, when I drive with my kids, they always say, "Why does it smell like French fries in this car?" Well, it's because there's biofuel in there. It smells kind of like French fries, So there's things. It's again, the technology is available. This is why I mentioned today in the speech. I mean, Mercedes is coming out with this beautiful SLS. It's been driving around, and now they have like 12 cylinders in there, and there's almost 600 horsepower, and it takes a lot of gas. But now they're coming out with the very same car, all electric, and it drives faster than the one with gasoline. I test drove it already in Stuttgart. It's an extraordinary car. So imagine it has such a limited amount of greenhouse gas because you're charging it up and using the grid, but the amount of reduction that you have there is enormous. And the same is like, with the Tesla car. It's all electric. There's many of the car manufacturers now that make good-looking cars, not those clunky-looking cars. I don't know if you could see the last few years, and when electric cars began, and when all these alternative fuel cars began, they all looked like I didn't want to sit in those cars. Why? Why do you have to build a car that looks so crappy when you in fact can build a car that looks really great and sexy that you want to get in there? And now they're starting to do that, car manufacturers. And I think there's a great, great development. I remember in Los Angeles, we had at the car show, at the International Auto Show, we had the first year in 2004, we had 2 cars, alternative fueled cars. And in the end, the last year I was governor, we had 50 companies with the alternative fueled vehicles. So there's huge development going on, not fast enough, but there is great movement going on right now, and I'm very happy about that.
And you're supporting the movement by this R20 initiative. And there is one question by Christian Loderer, who wants to come on to this point of this initiative. There he is.
Thanks, Mr. Schwarzenegger, for being here. My question is, talking about this R20, you also talk about sustainability. Sustainability means also water supply, means also healthy food. So how does this R20 evaluate and facilitate these important matters?
Well, let me just explain to you that the R20, the whole purpose of R20 is it concentrates on making regional governments, empowering them and giving them the courage to go ahead and not to be frozen and wait for some national treaty or for some international treaty or to wait for the federal government. We want to tell them that all great movements started on a grassroots level, on a local level. And the same is the case with this year. It won't be happening from the top down. Yes, there's great efforts being made from the top down and to get an international treaty. But while they are negotiating, which could be another 5 years, it could be 10 years, I have no idea. Mr. Jim Keller probably can tell you more about that, where we are right now with the negotiations. But we feel very strongly that you should continue with those negotiations, but at the same time we should encourage local governments, cities and states and provinces, to go and to take charge and to show leadership like Burgenland in Austria, or like Niederösterreich, or like Güssing did as a city, or like California did as a state. I mean, there's endless amount of examples, and to encourage also individuals. I mean, look at, for instance, I mean, there was one company that is in charge of the Empire State Building, one of the most famous buildings. They decided that this costs too much money to provide energy for this building. So they made it energy efficient. It took them, I think, 2 years to work on that, took all the windows out, and then reused those windows, but modernized the whole thing. Now they're saving $4 million a year because the building is now more energy efficient. And the Sears Tower in Chicago, they actually reduced it by 80% the energy use. So there's great work going on. What we want to tell through the R20 is you take charge. Don't wait for the capitals, because no great movement ever came from a capital. If it is the civil rights movement in America, if it is the suffrage movement that gave women the right to vote in America, if it is the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, it didn't come from a capital. It came from the people, from a ground level up. If it is the independence movement in India, all of those great movements happen from the people power, not from the federal government or from a capital or something like that. So this is what the R20 is all about: is to encourage subnational governments to take charge and to show leadership.
Mr. Unkeller, what do you think? Once all these international institutions and organizations come to a result finally on how they want to set this whole issue, maybe the regional initiatives are far ahead with their achievements. Is that possible?
We need to work at both levels. We need global agreements to create level playing fields for all. And that's why we as the United Nations still sponsor these negotiations. It is better to have everybody in the room and keep discussing than have the alternative, where there is no discussion, everybody does what they want to do. Just imagine if at least we didn't create the awareness about climate change through these conferences. Thank God we did. Otherwise, some countries will just do business as usual. Why? Because others have had the same privilege. Some have used coal for over 100 years. How can you tell somebody else not to use coal today? Unless you have a dialogue, unless you have a discussion, that technology cooperation can take place, financial cooperation can take place, and we'll have a level playing field. I think it is crucial. We should not bash the negotiations. Some people get discouraged that they've been meeting too much. You know, the late Winston Churchill used to say it is better to jaw than to war. When people don't discuss, you pollute or the water resources dry up. In Asia, there will be conflicts. We've already predicted that in the next 20, 30 years, we should watch the water wars. Unless you have this dialogue, but at the same time, that's why we support what Governor is doing. We know solutions exist. We know some cities are making efforts. How can we spread that information about what is working? How can we show possibilities that it can actually happen? And that's why we partner. Arnold and I are becoming now, a tag team on these shows. We do it in New York, we do it everywhere. The reason is, what he did in California, we want to convince rich countries that you can do the same and your lifestyle will not change. But at the same time, I need his help to get the solutions to the bottom of the pyramid, the bottom billion that do not have access today to electricity. And I think it's a wonderful partnership to show that yes, action is taking place. The same with Mayor Bloomberg is taking action. So we do believe that yes, we should showcase these good examples and see if others can copy it, but also reach across the border. Make it an international movement, an international partnership.
Sounds wonderful. There is one personal question that somebody wants to ask you. Her name is Sonja Makotic. She's here, and can she ask the question?
My question is, how do you, which field of university study would you choose now? And how did you thought your life will be when you were 20 years old?
Which subject would I choose if I would study at the university?
Yeah.
Again, the same as I did when I graduated in America, which was business and economics. I think that, to me, this is the most helpful, because no matter what subject you're in or what area you go, if it is show business or if it is economic, if it is environmental issues, or if it is being a painter, or being an artist, or being an athlete, you need a business mind. You need to know how to make $1 into two. And the other subject that I think is very important is marketing. Ted Turner in America has a saying, early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and advertise. And he's absolutely correct, because you can have the best product in the world, but if the world doesn't know about it, you have nothing. And this is why you need to know the skill of marketing, the skill of publicity and communicating, and how to get the message out there. So those are the two things to me always were the most important thing. It was the most helpful to me, because I am literally one of the very few in Hollywood that have never been ripped off by any financial genius out there that is trying to do that. I mean, I've seen too many actors losing their millions of dollars. I've seen too many of the professional athletes losing all of their money. If it is Evander Holyfield and people like that were world champion in boxing and paid $20 million a fight, and then all of a sudden end up with no money. Muhammad Ali ended up almost with no money because of it. So I think that it is very important that you have a business mind, besides whatever else you're doing, and that you have a mind for marketing, so that people know of the kind of work that you're doing, or the kind of product that you're producing, or the kind of ideas that you have, including this, what we're doing now, what the UN is doing. I mean, you know, the UN, I mean, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, he's very passionate about this subject of environmental issues. I've never seen anyone in that top leadership position like that that is that passionate, and makes it one of the main agendas to accomplish this goal, a sustainable energy future. But he is always thinking about how can we get that message out there? How can we market that idea? Every time I talk to him, that is what is on his mind. And that's why it is so important, because we got to get that information out there, otherwise you have nothing. So this is why I would study exactly the same thing again.
Can I pitch in on the communications? That's why we partner with them. When we talk to students, maybe we get, if we're lucky, 50 or 100. When Arnold shows up, we get 1,000. So and indeed, he was gracious. When we went to Hollywood 2 years ago with the Secretary General, Arnold gave us quality time, but so did many, many of the actors. And very soon we're going to have a commercial come out with Giselle Munchin, the model, also on this. We know, and we are making a deal now with Lincoln Park. Many of you, how many know Lincoln Park in the room?
Sure.
Yes, there you go.
All right, great action ahead. But I saw Minister Töchterle's face when Arnold Schwarzenegger said, in every direction of study, also in jeder Studienrichtung muss man was von Wirtschaft verstehen, um aus einem Dollar 2 zu machen. Sehen Sie das auch so?
Könnten Sie die Frage nochmal wiederholen?
Ja. Also Arnold Schwarzenegger hat gerade
nicht verstanden.
Er hat gerade gesagt, egal was man studiert oder wofür man sich interessiert, ob man Maler werden will, Künstler oder Wissenschaftler, auf jeden Fall muss jeder wissen, wie man aus einem Dollar 2 macht. Sehen Sie das auch so?
Ich sehe es anders. Also natürlich ist Gewinnstreben an und für sich etwas durchaus Menschliches und etwas Inhärentes, aber man kann natürlich klarerweise Wissenschaft studieren, wohl nicht darauf beschränken, wie man überhaupt, mit einigen Statements stimme ich da nicht ganz überein. Also ich vertraue nicht allein auf Bottom-up, nicht allein auf die Kraft des Einzelnen. Ich glaube, dass es ganz wichtig ist, und das haben Sie ganz richtig, you are right, maintaining that we need the international organizations for sustainable politics. Also wir brauchen natürlich immer die politischen Rahmenbedingungen. Und der Appell an den Einzelnen ist zu wenig. Das ist zu wenig. Wir sind aber in demokratischen Gesellschaften und insofern gebe ich natürlich Arnold Ihnen recht, wenn man mit dieser Politik Erfolg haben will, dann braucht man die Zustimmung des Einzelnen. Ich war letztes Jahr in China und ich habe dort lange mit dem Wissenschaftsminister geredet und ich habe die erfreuliche Feststellung machen können, dass er und auch die chinesische Regierung hochsensibel ist, was eine Änderung ihrer Politik in Richtung Nachhaltigkeit betrifft. Man weiß dort ganz genau, dass man dieses Riesenland erfolgreich nur in die Zukunft führen kann, wenn man umsteuert auf nachhaltige Politik. Man weiß aber sogar in einer Diktatur, dass man das nur tun kann, wenn die Bevölkerung mitgeht. Also man kann auch dort nicht es gegen die Bevölkerung machen. Deswegen glaube ich, braucht es immer beides, Bottom-up und Top-down. Es braucht beides. Aber der Appell an den Einzelnen allein ist zu wenig. Da würde sich eine Politik zu leicht machen.
Governor Schwarzenegger, how did you manage to have all your Californians on board with all your ideas you realized in California? Or did you have resistance to different projects as well?
Well, first of all, I don't think that you can ever have everyone on board. There's no such thing. I mean, 20% of the people hate their mother. So I mean, so how can you have everyone, go in your direction and think that 100% of people think this is a great idea? It won't happen. So the important thing is that you have the majority of people on board. That's the key thing. And so we created the reforms because we had the majority of people in California on board. Like I said, there were people in the Republican Party, my own party, that were very much against some of the policies, and they called me a traitor. They said, you sold out, you're married to a Democrat, so you're becoming a Democrat and all this. They saw it in a political way. I never saw those issues in a political way. I don't care if it's a Democratic idea or if they say it's a Republican idea. It doesn't really matter to the people. To the people, what matters is that we clean the air and that we clean the water and that we create a clean and sound and safe environment for them. That's really what the people care, that we can find a way of creating this sustainable energy future, and we all should work together. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. So that to me was always the most important thing. That's how I led in California.
There was a second part of the question the young lady just asked, and I want to remind you because she wanted to know from you, when you were 20 years old, what did you think about your own future?
Well, when I was 20 years old, I had dreams, I had big dreams. And it was to be not only a world champion in bodybuilding, but I wanted to be the greatest bodybuilder of all times, because I always went way beyond most people's ambitions. And, and then I thought I would get into movies, but I was thinking more about doing Hercules movies, like my idol Reg Park or Steve Reeves. I did not know at that point that I would, that the whole thing would work, being a leading man, and then all of a sudden I would be accepted in action movies and eventually be accepted in comedies, and to really work my way up and that the whole thing takes off and I become the highest paid entertainer in the world. That was not in my dreams. So that all happened. So I was one of the very fortunate ones where I accomplished my dreams and went beyond my dreams. The same is with governorship. When I was a kid, I had not the foggiest idea that I'm going to at all be interested in politics or at all being interested in being a public servant and wanting to be a governor. So these things happened as I went along. But again, only in America, I say, because most of the things that I've accomplished in my life is because of America. I got a great foundation here in Austria with the education system and all that, and the parenting, the upbringing and all this, the discipline. But then the opportunities, the endless amount of opportunities for me were in America.
Even more so, it's wonderful and great to have you back in Austria, in your home country. And thank you very much for your initiative on R20. And thank you very much for discussing tonight with the students and dedicating your time to the young people. Have a wonderful time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Governor Schwarzenegger.
Thank you.